The text came in at 6:14 p.m. Short, cold, and devastating in a way only family could manage. Please don't come. The family wants a drama-free wedding. Mom, Valentina stared at the screen, waiting for the rest of the message. An explanation. Softened edge. Typo. Nothing followed. Just that sentence. That sentence. And then the notification that made her chest tighten. Serena liked the message, of course she did. Serena, the golden child, the princess, the son everyone in the Delgado household revolved around, always got the last word, even when she wasn't the one sending the message. Valentina wasn't surprised, not really. What surprised her was the feeling that moved through her. Not sharp, not fiery, but quiet. Small, contained snap. Like a thread breaking. She didn't burst into tears. She didn't start shaking. She didn't type back paragraphs begging for clarity or asking what she had done this time. She just stared at the phone and thought. So that's how it is. Her mother, Marissa, had always been an expert in control. She spoke in expectations, not conversations. Everything had to look perfect. Pictures curated for Facebook, holidays coordinated down to the color palette, and now a wedding she could parade through the neighborhood like a trophy. Her father, Edward, played his usual part. Quiet, agreeable, a man who convinced himself that staying silent meant staying neutral. Didn't. It meant abandoning Valentina over and over again. And Serena? Serena floated through life insulated by praise, excuses, and the world's softest cushion. Every mistake she made was explained away, brushed aside, or handed to someone else to fix. Usually that someone was Valentina. She had always been the responsible one. Planner. The project manager of the Delgado family vacations. She booked them. Bills that accidentally ended up in her lap. She paid them. Serena's last-minute emergencies. She handled them because if she didn't, she was told she was making things harder for everyone. She organized bridal appointments, chose vendors when Serena was too mentally drained, and even fronted the deposit for the venue when Serena's card mysteriously declined. And now they didn't want drama. The irony almost made her laugh. The phone buzzed again. A follow-up bubble she thought might be remorse. It wasn't. Marissa. It's for the best. We don't want tension during Serena's big day. They always said things like that. As if Edward had typed a single word. As if Serena wasn't liking the messages with smug little taps from her phone. Valentina inhaled slowly. And that was the moment. Right there. When the last piece clicked into place, she wasn't devastated. She was done. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just done. She typed back. Great choice. 2 words. Neutral. Non-negotiable. Final. And as she set her phone down, she felt something she hadn't felt in years, relief. Because for the first time, she wasn't scrambling to fix the mess, she was stepping out of it. Before I tell you everything, tell me where you're listening from in the comments below. I need to know I'm not alone in this. The text message didn't just hurt because it uninvited Valentina from the wedding. It hurt because it confirmed a pattern she had been living inside for years. So long she stopped recognizing it as unfair and started recognizing it as normal. Growing up, the roles in the Delgado family were assigned early and enforced quietly. Serena was the favorite. Not officially, not spoken aloud. But in the soft allowances, in the endless excuses, in the way the entire household rearranged itself around her moods like she was royalty and everyone else was staff. Valentina, on the other hand, became the reliable one. Need something done. Valentina will handle it. Need something paid. Valentina will cover it. Need someone to fix the disaster Serena created. Valentina will clean it up. Because what's the alternative? Let Serena feel discomfort. That pattern had followed her into adulthood, into every holiday, every crisis, and eventually straight into Serena's wedding planning. When the engagement happened, everyone celebrated Serena. Everyone leaned on Valentina. She handled the venue search, compared packages, negotiated rates. She filled out vendor forms Serena didn't want to read. She organized bridal fittings, scheduled hair and makeup trials, and paid, out of her own pocket, 3 deposits, just to help things move faster. She even booked the bakery after Serena said, "Ugh, I trust you. You always do it better anyway." It was meant as a compliment. It felt like another chain. The only person who ever seemed to see the weight she carried was her grandmother. Her grandmother's garden was Valentina's safe place, a world of soft soil, slow mornings, and gentle wisdom. Whenever the house grew too loud, she would escape there, sinking into the quiet hum of bees and the sweet scent of lavender. Her grandmother would hand her a mug of chamomile tea and say things like, "Strength isn't only in what you carry, sweetheart, but in what you refuse to pick up." Valentina never understood that line when she was younger. Now she felt its truth down to her bones. Leading up to the uninvitation, the signs had been there. Small cuts disguised as comments, like when she reminded Serena to confirm the florist. Serena rolled her eyes. "You worry too much. You always do." Or when her mother compared their contributions. "Serena's focusing on looking beautiful. You're better with the logistical things." Logistical things. As if she were the family in turn. The day the text arrived uninviting her, Valentina had been reviewing payment schedules. She had color-coded spreadsheets open on her laptop, checking due dates and tallying what she'd covered versus what she still needed to remind them about. Ironically, she was organizing details for a wedding she was now banned from. She didn't cry. She didn't rage. She just felt that same quiet snap she'd felt before. The pattern wasn't new. But finally seeing it, finally naming it, was. Have you ever been the one everyone counts on but nobody values? Drop a comment if this sounds familiar. The first sign something was wrong came a week before the uninvitation, during what Marissa proudly called Wedding Week, said with the same tone dictators use for national holidays. She stood in the kitchen holding a floral binder labeled Serena's Perfect Day and announced, "We'll need a little extra cash to make everything seamless. Thankfully, we have your grandmother's emergency savings envelope." Valentina froze. Envelope. Her grandmother's decades-old habit of keeping a little stash tucked beneath the cedar box on her dresser. "Just in case life surprises us," she always said. It wasn't much. But it was hers. "Absolutely not," Valentina said, stepping between Marissa and the hallway. "That money is for emergencies." Marissa waved her off like a bug. "This is an emergency." The florist added a surcharge. "That's not an emergency," Valentina said through clenched teeth. Edward didn't even look up from his phone. "Let your mother handle it, Val." And Serena, leaning against the counter in her silk robe, shrugged dramatically. "Grandma doesn't even use that money. She won't care." Of course Serena didn't think she'd care. Serena didn't think anyone cared unless it involved Serena. Valentina wanted to scream, to drag the envelope out of reach, to shake them until they understood boundaries. But arguing was like shouting into fog. Nothing stuck. Instead, she stormed out and drove to the dress fitting, hoping the quiet there would ground her. When she arrived, her grandmother was already seated in the corner of the boutique, her hands folded gently on her lap. She smiled, soft and knowing, as Valentina approached. "They're planning without you again, aren't they?" her grandmother said before Valentina uttered a single word. Valentina sat beside her, staring at the rows of lace dresses. "How did you know? I'm old, not blind." Her grandmother reached over and squeezed her hand. "Strength isn't only in what you carry, sweetheart, but in what you refuse to pick up. You can walk away from their chaos." Valentina blinked back tears. She had never needed those words more. But the real punch came later that day. The moment everything sharpened into clarity. She walked into the living room just as her mom was rearranging seating charts, muttering to herself. "Serena's layout looks better. More balanced." Valentina always overthinks these things. The sting was immediate but familiar. Then her phone buzzed, the uninvitation text. "Please don't come. The family wants a drama-free wedding." Before she could react, Serena, sitting right across from her, looked at her phone, smirked and tapped the little heart icon. She liked the message. Right. Front. Her no hesitation. No shame. As if this were a group project and Valentina was the liability they needed to remove. In that instant it clicked. The envelope. Planning. The dismissive comments. The sudden coldness. This wasn't a mistake. This was a plan. This is when I realized they hadn't just excluded me, they'd coordinated it. Keep watching to see what I did next. That night, the house felt impossibly silent. Like even the walls were waiting to see what Valentina would do. She sat at her desk with only the glow of her laptop lighting the room. The wedding spreadsheet was still open. Pages of tabs she had created, labeled, color-coded, cross-checked. Payments she had made. Payments she had scheduled. Payments the family never thanked her for, never acknowledged, never even asked about. She scrolled through the ledger, each line tightening something inside her. Deposit for the venue, hers. Catering reservation, hers. Lighting package upgrade because Serena needed ambience, hers. Decor rentals, hers. Bridal suite reservation, hers. It wasn't generosity. It wasn't kindness. It was exploitation, disguised as responsibility. A notification popped across the corner of her screen. The family group chat. Serena had sent a picture of a new seating chart. Her comment underneath. This looks so much better without Valentina's section. Cleaner. Mom heart reacted. Dad thumbs up. Of course he did. Valentina stared at the message for a long, steady moment. Then she clicked into her private chat with her mother. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. And then she typed, slow and precise. Great choice. Then you'll be free of my payments too. She hit send. Not a tremor in her hands. Her mother didn't respond. She didn't need her to. Because Valentina knew exactly what she had to do next. She opened her email. Not to type threats, not to lash out, not to teach them a lesson, but to reclaim what was hers. With a calm, almost corporate tone, she began working down the list. To the venue. Hello, this is to notify you that I will no longer be financially responsible for the Delgado wedding reservation. Please release my card from the file effective immediately. To the catering company. Please cancel order number 2781. The responsible parties will contact you if they wish to reinstate it. To lighting, decor, event staff. Remove me as the payer and point of contact. Professional. Clean. Boundary setting. Not revenge. Self-preservation. With each email sent, a weight lifted off her shoulders. For once, she wasn't fixing anything. She wasn't cushioning them from consequences. She wasn't picking up the pieces. She was letting them sit exactly where they fell. It was nearly midnight when she heard a soft knock at her door. Her grandmother stepped inside, wrapped in her knitted shawl, eyes full of the kind of understanding only someone who has quietly survived their own storms could have. I heard them leave, her grandmother said. The house got too quiet. That means you're hurting. Valentina swallowed, unable to speak for a moment. I'm not choosing them anymore, she finally whispered. I'm choosing us this time. Her grandmother smiled, small, proud, unshaken. Good, she said. Because when they come home, we'll be ready. And for the first time that day, Valentina felt safe. Not because the family changed, but because she did. What would you do in my situation? Let me know in the comments and hit subscribe so you don't miss what happens when they return. The morning they were scheduled to return, the house felt charged, like a storm was gathering even though the sky outside was clear. Valentina woke before dawn, her stomach tight but steady. This confrontation wasn't revenge. It wasn't spite. It was closure. Long overdue, necessary, and finally, on her terms. Her grandmother was already at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug of ginger tea. The older woman's voice was calm, but the way her thumb tapped against the ceramic betrayed her nerves. Are you sure you're ready for this, sweetheart? She asked. Valentina nodded. I don't want to run anymore. Her grandmother exhaled deeply, then stood and reached for her coat. Good. Then let's go meet your freedom. They arrived early at the airport, the arrivals hall buzzing with the usual chaos. Rolling suitcases, crying toddlers, people holding signs, announcements echoing overhead. Valentina scanned the crowd until she spotted him. Attorney Mason Park. Sharp suit, calm presence, folder tucked under one arm. He spotted them and offered a warm, steady smile. Morning, Valentina. Ms. Delgado. He nodded respectfully to her grandmother. Everything is in order. Are you ready? Valentina inhaled slowly. Yes. Her grandmother slipped her arm through hers. We're ready. Flight 622 from Cancun appeared on the overhead screen as arrived. They waited near the barrier, watching passengers spill out in waves. Vacation-tanned, tired, chattering. Then came them. Marissa walked out first, head held high, hair perfectly smoothed, suitcase rolling behind her like a declaration of importance. Serena followed in oversized sunglasses, scrolling on her phone, clearly annoyed at the brightness of the terminal. Damon, Serena's fiancé, trailed after them, earbuds in, carrying Serena's smaller bags like a distracted pack mule, and behind them, Edward walked quietly, looking older than he had a week ago. Marissa spotted Valentina first. Confusion washed over her face, then irritation sharpened her features. "What are you doing here?" she demanded, looking around as if this were an ambush. Valentina didn't flinch. "We need to talk." Marissa scoffed. "Oh please. Now you want to talk? After the stunt you pulled?" Before Valentina could respond, Mason stepped forward, offering a firm handshake that Marissa pretended not to see. "I'm attorney Mason Park," he said clearly. "I represent Valentina and Ms. Delgado. I'm here to deliver a formal notice regarding financial exploitation, unauthorized access attempts, and misappropriation of funds." The arrival hall suddenly felt much quieter. Marissa stared at him, stunned. "Exploitation? What are you talking about?" Mason handed her an envelope, thick, heavy. "Documentation, messages, payment logs, and attempted withdrawal alerts from your mother's monitored emergency savings." Serena froze. Damon blinked. Edward's shoulders slumped. Marissa let out a humorless laugh. "This is ridiculous. Everything was agreed upon." Valentina offered. "No," Valentina said softly but firmly. "You expected." Serena stepped forward, voice dripping with entitlement. "You ruined everything. You embarrassed us on the biggest week of my life." Valentina's grandmother moved beside her, spine straight as a blade. "Family doesn't discard one person to elevate another," she said, her voice carrying more weight than any of theirs. "You don't get to humiliate your sister and rob your mother and still call it love." A small crowd had begun forming. Slow, curious onlookers dragging suitcases, whispering as the confrontation grew louder. Marissa noticed, face flushing with embarrassment. "Can we not do this here?" she hissed. Mason remained unbothered. "Here is exactly where this needs to happen. Public accountability prevents further manipulation." He opened the folder and began summarizing. "Here is the uninvitation message you sent." He displayed it on a printed sheet. "Please don't come. The family wants a drama-free wedding." Serena looked away. "And here," Mason continued, "is the financial log showing Ms. Valentina paid for 90% of the wedding arrangements, without reimbursement, authorization, or acknowledgement." He handed another packet to Marissa, who flipped through it, each page paling her face further. "And finally," Mason said, "alerts from your mother's monitored savings account, noting attempted access without consent." Marissa's eyes snapped up. "Monitored? Why was it monitored?" Grandmother crossed her arms. "Because I know you, Marissa. And I knew you would try." Damon cleared his throat weakly. "Look. Maybe it was just a misunderstanding. We were all stressed." "It wasn't a misunderstanding," Valentina said. "It was a pattern. And I'm ending it." Marissa's voice trembled, half anger, half desperation. "We can fix this. Tell me what you want." Valentina looked at her, really looked at her. "I want you to understand I'm done," she said. "I'm not funding your events. I'm not absorbing your chaos. I'm not letting you take from Grandma. I'm out." Serena's voice cracked with offended disbelief. "So you're punishing us?" "No," Valentina replied. "I'm protecting myself." Mason stepped forward again. "Here are the legal boundaries and requirements moving forward. Financial access is revoked. Contact must remain respectful. Any attempt to harass or manipulate will result in escalated action." Edward finally spoke, voice small. "Val. Sorry. I should have stopped it." She nodded once. She believed him. But apology didn't undo years. Marissa reached out helplessly. Valentina, wait, please. Let's go home and talk about this. We can fix it. Valentina stepped back. No. You will figure it out. And with her grandmother's hand in hers, she turned and walked away, leaving them standing in the middle of the arrivals hall, stunned, exposed, and finally facing the consequences she had protected them from her entire life. The look on their faces when they realized they couldn't manipulate me anymore. It was priceless. But the real transformation came in what happened next. The weeks after the airport confrontation were quieter than Valentina could have imagined. Not the kind of quiet that hides tension, but the kind that feels like the world has finally exhaled. First came the legal confirmations. Her grandmother's emergency savings account was now fully protected, legally inaccessible to anyone but herself. No one could dip into decades of careful planning or manipulate it for personal gain. Valentina had felt a strange mix of relief and awe. Her grandmother's foresight finally paired with her own resolve. Emails pinged relentlessly at first. Vendor cancellations, each one a small, satisfying confirmation. The florist, the caterer, the lighting company, the venue. Everything Serena and Marissa had assumed would happen seamlessly on Valentina's dime unraveled quietly, systematically. No drama. Just accountability. Family messages arrived on her phone. Some angry, some embarrassed, some silent. Serena sent a string of exclamation points followed by a thumbs-down emoji. Marissa's texts wavered between pleading and self-righteousness. Edward tried to reach out with apologies. None of it warranted a response. Valentina didn't answer. Not once. Instead, she spent mornings and afternoons in the only place that had ever felt like safety. Her grandmother's garden. The roses had bloomed into a riot of pinks and whites. Lavender swayed gently in the breeze, and the hummingbirds hovered near the feeders as if celebrating the newfound calm. Her grandmother laughed more freely now, no longer holding her breath at every phone buzz or whispered conversation in the kitchen. They tended the soil together, planting bulbs for the next season and talking about everything. Stories from her grandmother's youth, dreams Valentina had quietly tucked away for years, and the kind of small, ordinary joys they had never allowed themselves to enjoy. The wedding plans dissolved quietly. There was no dramatic confrontation, no last-minute run to the courthouse or Facebook post. They simply fell apart, no longer propped up by Valentina's resources, no longer cloaked in denial. One late afternoon, as Valentina pruned a row of rose bushes and the sun set low, her grandmother rested a hand on her shoulder. "You saved both of us," she said softly. Valentina smiled, feeling something she hadn't felt in a long time, peace. Not because her family had changed, but because she had. Because she had refused to erase herself again. Because she had chosen boundaries over obligation, and love over submission. Sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to participate in your own erasure. Comment if you agree. The first morning Valentina walked into the Advocacy Center for Older Adults, she felt a sense of purpose she hadn't realized she was missing. The work was quiet but meaningful, helping seniors navigate paperwork, teaching them to use video calls, listening to stories of lives fully lived. It was not chaos, not family drama, not endless obligations. It was choice. For years she had measured love by how much she could endure, how much she could fix. Now she measured it differently. By respect, by reciprocity, by freedom. She saw real love in the way the seniors smiled when she offered help, not because they expected it, but because it was authentic, welcomed, and kind. She thought of her family, not with bitterness but with clarity. Their choices had shaped their own lives, not hers. Valentina's life was hers to define. Boundaries were no longer punishment or protest. They were her compass. Every no she said was a declaration. She would not disappear so others could shine. Walking away from the wedding, from the family's expectations, from years of being the unpaid fixer, had not been an ending. It had been a beginning. A chance to build relationships that honored her time, her energy, and her heart. Her grandmother's words echoed in her mind. Real love never asks you to disappear so others can shine. And she understood it fully now. Healing, not draining. Boundaries, not obligations. Respect, not manipulation. Valentina smiled as she guided a senior through a new online video call. She was choosing herself, choosing honest connections, choosing life on her terms. And that choice was more powerful than anything her family had ever demanded. If this story resonated with you, share your experience in the comments below. Tell me where you're listening from and hit that subscribe button so you never miss stories about setting boundaries and choosing yourself. Your story matters, and you're not alone.